Well, good morning, friends. Hello, lovely to see you. As you can see on the screen, we've got Laura with us today. Hello, Laura.
Hello there.
Hi. So Laura is an environmental scientist who has been serving with BMS in Peru since 2012. Now, initially, Laura was based in the Peruvian Amazon, assisting with the development of environmental and educational initiatives through the Nauta Integral Mission Training Center. Is that right?
Well done. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Excellent. And most of you will probably know that because you may have come across Laura before. She's visited us a number of times while she's been back in the UK and given us some updating information on that. And she's going to do that again today, remind us a little bit about where she's been and what she's been doing. But also, she's moving on to some new work and some new developments in her work. And we're going to hear about that too. So this is mostly going to be us listening to Laura. But first, just a little couple of questions. It's nice to see you, Laura. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And you've been back in the UK now for a little while, doing what's called home assignment. It's been a bit different to normal. You haven't had to do quite so many miles on the road.
No.
But you have been to Scotland.
Yes. Of all the places, yes, I've been to Scotland.
Of all the places you've been to Scotland. Well, we would love to have had you come to our building in Mount Pleasant, but second best today. We got this video recording and really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us. So you're very welcome. So trying to use the best of the technology that we've got amongst these two incompetent people here. We're going to see if we can share the screens and I'm going to spotlight you. I think, is that what we said we would try and do?
Yeah.
Speak of you. So you speak.
Yeah, here
there
I
you
am.
go. And then you can share your screen and we can hear a little bit about what you've been up to. Thanks.
Okay, let's do it. Lovely. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. It's really lovely to be sharing with you guys again. It's really sad that my first time in over 9 years, I don't get to physically visit Mount Pleasant, but I'm so glad that at least we've got this technology, and so we can make the most of it, can't we? So I'm just going to be giving us a bit of an overview of the ministry, some of the challenges, some of the blessings, some personal reflection on that, and also where I'm moving on to. But to start off, as I always like to start off, with a little bit of geography, just for those of you who might not be completely familiar with myself and the work, you might be visiting or just watching this online. So yes, I'm based in Peru, up in the northeastern part of the country. I've put two nice little dots on the map there to show you just about where I am. So I've been based at Nauta, at the Nauta Integral Mission Training Center, and we work at this training center. We've been developing this project on behalf of the Loreto Baptist Association, which is an association of 10 small Baptist churches based in the city of Iquitos, which is the dot, the upper dot, and that is the kind of the provincial capital, a city of about 500,000 people, and it's about 60 miles from Nauta. So I do a fair bit of travel between Iquitos and Nauta for various things. So that's where I am on the map. To remind us again what it looks like as we fly in, because the map really doesn't do it justice, and I'm sure you'll have seen this picture before, or I think I show this every time I do a visit, because it just the picture just speaks volumes. I think this particular part of Peru is within the Amazon basin, so it's known as the Peruvian Amazon. It's wall-to-wall jungle, lots of rivers, lots of sort of lakes, lots of water, not so many roads, as you can see, not so many big cities or large settlements, really quite remote. It's hot, it's sticky, it's lovely weather really all year round. I love it, but not a lot of skiing happens here because it's also very, very flat, as you can see. And really from the start, the real thrust of our ministry has been to be reaching out to our brothers and sisters, really, lay pastors, church leaders who are already ministering or trying to minister in towns and small villages and communities kind of spread out through this region. And we're there to come alongside them and to provide support for them, to build capacity for them, and help them in their ministry, which they're already using to reach out to people in their communities. And as we just kind of, as we land the plane and we travel from Iquitos to Nauta, which is the place that I live, I just wanted to show you again a little bit about the reality of Nauta, so that you can build up that picture. And it hasn't changed much in the years, so some of these pictures might be familiar to you. You can see the Plaza de Armas, the main central square of Nauta, up in the corner there, with my favorite mode of transport, the motocar. This is a three-wheeler. It's kind of an adapted motorbike, I suppose, and everyone's got a motor car. Hardly anyone has a car, but I use these to get around very easily. And from the plaza in my motor car, I can get to La Union, my neighborhood, in about 5 minutes. I should say I don't drive it myself. I'm not allowed to drive. But I pay a taxi man. Taxi will take me, and we get to La Union. And you've heard hopefully quite a bit about La Union over the years, because this is where I've been all of the time and working here in this neighborhood, in this community. And the scene you can see here is just a typical scene. 5 p.m, let's say, in the evening. It's just getting cool. The neighbors are coming out. This is the time to catch up with all the gossip. And you can see they've strung up the volleyball net across the street. And that's very, very common. The beloved sports in Loreto, this part of Peru, are football and volleyball. And so it's very common to have the road completely blocked as they play volleyball in the evenings. And then going a little bit further, we come to my home, which is the picture along the bottom there. And I've been very blessed to be able to live in this house since about 2018. Yeah, I'm very blessed to live in a house like this in this particular part of the world, and also very blessed to be living right next to the training center. So that big wall and the other big building right next to me is the Nauta Integral Mission Training Center. So it's very convenient to be living quite so close to my office, especially during lockdown. It meant that I could still pop over and do things that needed to be done over there. So that part was easy. But of course, we've had lots of challenges, as everyone has had lots of challenges over the last 18 months. So I'm just going to share a couple of those. And the main challenge, as I'm sure you can imagine, has been in the ministry, and in the sense that we had to cancel all of our scheduled activities as part of the Rural Pastors Integral Mission Training Program. We had our last training program in March last year, and then we've had to cancel it ever since. We haven't actually been able to start again yet, and we're not sure when we will start. It's obviously been very challenging for us, as life has been very challenging for everybody. For us, for example, in 2020, things started really well. We normally have a training week 6 times a year. So we start in January, the second one is in March, and then we go through to June, I think. So 2020 started so well. We had such good attendance in January, such good attendance in March, and we literally finished the March event on the Saturday before Peru went into its state of emergency and everything locked down on the Monday. So we literally just about got it in there without knowing really what was happening, of course. And since then, our doors have effectively been shut, which has been really frustrating for us as a team, obviously, and very sad for our students, many of whom we've not been able to see or hear from, because, of course, they live in quite remote parts of the jungle. Normally, the main way we would get to be able to visit them and see how they're doing and encourage them would be to physically get on the river and go up in a boat. But we haven't been able to do that at all, because that's not been permitted. So we've not been doing any of our normal river travel either. And does also mean we just don't know how many of our students are. So very, very challenging for us and in this ministry that has been the staple of what we've been doing since about 2012, to suddenly find that we couldn't do it at all has been a real challenge to us, and quite frustrating, as I'm sure you can imagine. The other big thing, which is also, I imagine, quite obvious, is this issue of health, isn't it? So pictured here are about half of the pastors who form part of that Loreto Baptist Association. We had 11 pastors in total. And during the last year, 6 of our pastors contracted COVID with various degrees of severity, including one pastor who I've mentioned previously, Pastor Angel, who passed away in May of last year with COVID. And that was a big blow to the family. It was certainly a big blow to the association as well. He was one of those founding members of the association. He was one of the founders of the training center. So it really was quite a big shock to people. Although he had been ill before, it was, this is just a big blow. So I would ask you to just continue to pray for these dear brothers, these dear ministers, because praise the Lord, most of them have recovered and are recovering, but we've seen how it's just really weakened people. It's really weakened the association. And dear Percy, so Percy is the president, and he is the guy in the middle. He's got the red and black t-shirt. He's the president, and he's really trying to pull people back together, pull the pastors back, and help the association back on its knees, back on its feet again, rather. So please pray for all of these pastors of the Loreto Baptist Association, but do remember Pastor Percy as well as the family of Pastor Angel. Okay, let's talk about some of the positive things, because thanks to the Lord, it hasn't all been bad news, and we can talk about some of the good things, some of the blessings that we've seen. And first off, I'd say we've been really blessed, I think, in being able to bless others over this time of need with their really basic material needs. So first off, we were very pleased, very thankful to the Lord to be able to provide funds to the Loreto Baptist Association through the BMS Relief Fund, which is only there because churches actually put money into that. So I want to say thank you to everyone who might have donated to that. This is what it looks like on the ground. So pastors in the association received funds. They were able to buy food and medicine and distribute that to their most needy families that they knew of. So that was in Iquitos, and that was really, really good. In Nauta, situation is a little bit different because we don't have any of the association pastors in Nauta, but we do have a water project. And so what we decided we could do in Nauta was just actually, I wasn't going to be collecting any more debts for a whole space of about 3 months. We decided we could just cover the cost of the water project for 3 months, from about May through to July, just as another way to help people who are really struggling with not being able to go out and work. And I think this is something that I've spoken about a lot over the years, and I think many of you appreciate that in this particular part of Peru, a lot of people just depend on that daily wage to buy their food for the day or maybe for tomorrow. But if they can't work, they don't have any savings and there's no insurance, so they tend to go hungry. So it's really good. I'm really thankful to the Lord and to the churches that we've been able to have resources to actually meet some of these very simple but necessary material needs. We've also been really blessed with the people the Lord has brought to the training center. I've always found this, more than any other thing, the Lord puts resources in the form of people. And one of these wonderful resources is this guy called Felix. And I'm sure I've spoken about him quite a lot in various BMS things and newsletters and blogs. And he's the one pictured in the center picture there with the big microphone there. And one of the many things that is great about Felix is that he had experience of using the radio. This is not something that any of us in the team had an experience of. So Felix is looking around at the situation in Nauta, and he's seeing, like we are, that the training center is shut. He's seeing that the churches are shut, that very few churches in this region are able to do things online. You know, we're not Zooming in Nauta. There's really no Zoom happening. And people are just, they're panicking, really. There's a real state of panic happening. And he's thinking, we need to be able to do something. And he's very good. He wakes up at 6 a.m. and he listens to the radio, as many people in Nauta and the surrounding region do, because it's still the main way of getting information out to people. I'm afraid I don't wake up at 6 a.m., but he does, and he listens. And so he was the one who said, we can be using radio. Why don't we use radio? We've got to tell people that they have a hope. We've got to tell people about Jesus. Jesus is still here. The pandemic hasn't somehow got rid of Jesus. People need to know about him more than ever. And the churches can't do it, but maybe we can do it on radio. And this seemed like a good idea to us as a team. So we basically said, go for it. And you could say the rest is history, because we're still on the radio. It worked so well. We got such positive feedback from people, even just people in the street saying, hey, we heard you on the radio. Sounds really good. Feel really encouraged by it. And it just seems to be such a positive way of reaching out to so many more people than we perhaps ever would have been able to bring physically into the training center. We know people are listening to us a long way away. What would normally take maybe a day's travel, you know, we can just send them a message via radio instantaneously. So we've just seen it's such a positive thing, and as a team we're actually looking at it and going, no, this is a gain for us. This is a gain that we have received through this going through this experience of the pandemic. We never thought we would see a gain, but this is definitely something that we believe God has really shown us, and it's something that we're going to be using for the foreseeable future, pandemic or not. Because we just see it's really helping us to bless others. So that's really been positive. Both the guy, Felix, and the use of the radio have been such a blessing. I'm gonna let Mark just read this passage.
Yeah, so do you want to stop sharing your screen for a second, Laura, and we'll come to that Bible passage in a moment. And
okay, yeah.
Certainly, encourage people to grab a Bible if you can, and open it to Ephesians. And while you're finding Ephesians, folks, let me just pick up on one or two of those things that you said, because that's such a it's an honest reflection, but it's an encouraging one as well. And so the lockdown thing and the COVID thing. If anybody in the UK has been keeping up with any sort of international news, there have been mentions of, India and Peru. Peru came up, and you were saying, I think, when we had our Bible study a week or so ago, the Peruvian culture and the Peruvian character meant that the response to COVID was just very reactionary. And
yes, yeah. It's funny, I have an anecdote which maybe I'll just do it really, really short, but just to kind of illustrate this, how culturally that they're really good at reacting. You can see their reactions very easily, whether it's good or bad in some respects. And just the way that the media, and I know this was happening everywhere, the way that the media has been talking about COVID and what's happening, just was really working people up into an awful, terrified frenzy. And one of the brothers I was speaking to, his mother, got quite an elderly mother. She had a bit of a cough, but it wasn't really bad. And then someone said, oh, you probably got COVID. So he said, well, I'll take you into the nearest health center we've got. And the thing is, when they took him into the health center, there are a number of other people already in there in quite a bad way. And so the way he tells us that she saw these other people and all the nurses kind of fussing about them. And she straight away went downhill a long way. And so my Peruvian brother was saying, so I said to her, look, I'm taking you out of here. I'm taking you out of here because you were okay before you came in and saw all of this. I'm taking you out. So he took her out and he looked after her at home, and she recovered and she's fine. But he also was reflecting it and saying, you know, how many people have actually just suffered more just because of the way it's been talked about and the way that the church really just shut down. There was no message of hope coming out. It was just all bad news. Yeah, and that's really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, yeah. And that message of hope that you say, you know, is easy to forget or easy to lose
Yes.
when there's chaos or
Yeah.
confusion or, you know, panic
Yes.
amongst others.
Yeah.
And so this discovery of Felix and the radio ministry,
Mm.
you know, who thought radio ministry was, you know, modern and with it and
I know.
you know, yeah, but we all thought we ditched that in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so you know, that radio station, you know, people can listen to it almost wherever, I guess, wherever, whenever, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so as far as we can tell, current radio has a radius. People are picking it up to 80 miles away, which is a long way.
Mm,
It's a long way in the jungle.
mm,
And he basically it runs every day. It's 3 till 4 in the afternoon, Monday through to Friday, and then it's 9 till 10 in the morning,
mm,
Saturdays and Sundays. Well, I think he's not doing Sundays anymore because he's going to church because the churches are open. So it's every day, that time, all the time. So even when we run our training program on it, we use the same time. So everyone's used to it coming on at that time those days.
mm.
And that seems to be very effective. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, you know, we should be praying for Felix and those others who you know, are going to be keeping that radio ministry going and
Yes.
perhaps doing stuff. Okay, well, let's turn to our Bibles, folks. If
Yeah.
you've got a Bible in front of you, and Laura's asked me to read just a couple of verses from Ephesians, and if you want to share your screen, Laura, everybody will be able to see it on the screen. And if you haven't got a Bible in front of you, then hopefully you can see that. I just need to slightly change the size of that screen. There you go. There you go. So hopefully you can see it's Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 to 10. Great words. And they say this: For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do.
Mm.
Great words. So, Laura, you want to reflect a little bit on those verses for us for a moment or two, don't you?
Yes, yes, please. Yeah. I think for me, as I've been over the months, basically, over the last year or so, you know, you reflect on, okay, what am I learning personally? What is God really showing me during this time? We've all had to learn so many different things, haven't we? Including Zoom. Who had heard of Zoom 18 months ago? And for me, as I was thinking about what am I learning here? Lord, what are you showing me here? I just kept coming back to the subject of grace and this passage. I just keep coming back to this passage. And I suppose to unpack a little bit of that just briefly now is that, you know, I've talked about how when the training program, we had to sort of cancel everything. It was a bit frustrating, wasn't it? A bit challenging. And I'll be honest, it was really challenging for me because basically all of my work objectives hang on the training program. It hangs on the fact that we bring students in and we do practical, hands-on work, and we work together, we learn together. It's very participatory. So it's really difficult to do that if you can't physically be together. So all of these projects I had that seemed wonderful to me and were going to be so great. And as time went on, I realized I can't do any of these. These aren't going to work. We're not having students. So, okay. And so I'm starting to think, well, what can I do? I'm thinking I've got to go on home assignment next year. What am I going to tell the churches? You know, it does go through your mind. And I come to the point of saying, okay, Lord, you know I'm still here in the outer. You know I'm still here. So I'll do what you put in front of me to do, because I didn't know what else to do, let's be honest. And it's not long before you suddenly realize that there's lots of things that all of a sudden I can say yes to that previously, because of my other ideas, I would never have been able to say yes to. And there are a range of things, everything from just helping out my neighbours' children access their online schooling because they don't have laptops and they don't even have enough data to download the classes. But, you know, I do, by the grace of God. Being able to do English classes with two different groups of students, you know, they have such a desire to learn. The young people in this area, Nauta and Iquitos, it's so important to them, and they sought me out asking, "Can we do English with you? Have you got time?" And I was like, "Okay, I can say yes after all." And of course, what was also really, really satisfying was being able to do some really simple Bible studies a couple of times a week with a couple of different groups from a neighborhood and from the church, and they're pictured below. Really, that was such a blessing to me, and also satisfying to be able to see the fruits of it, see how encouraged they were, see how they began to just realize that they could have a real relationship with God, and that he was, you know, Jesus was real. He walked and lived as they do. So some really satisfying experiences, just a blessing to me, and I think I believe a blessing to them as well. But when I come back to this passage, I see the good works, but I'm reminded also that, you know, maybe I can talk about some of these things, but I can't talk about them in order to boast. It's never anything to do with boasting, because we know that whether we're ministering in Blackwood or if we're ministering in Nauta, it's by the same grace and by the same God that we do these things. Rather, there, whatever we can do, it's an outflowing actually of what God has already done in us. So really, I just wanted to share that, to just encourage us. You know, all of us have had over the last 18 months or shorter. All of us perhaps are still changing our plans, but I think that's not always a bad thing if it means that we're ready to change our plans to do the things that God has prepared for us to do, the good works that he wants us to do, rather than just the things that seem good to us but maybe aren't exactly what he would have us do. I just want to, I've been encouraged by that. I just want to encourage you also, my brothers and sisters, you know, let's be ready to see change as a good thing and not just a stressful thing, because God can do good things through change, and he often does. Okay. Talking of change, as many of you know, I will be moving on from Nauta. In fact, I already have, I guess. When I return to Peru at the end of July, I shall not be going to Nauta. I shall be going to a new city, the city of Piura. There on the the west coast of Peru. I've put a little dot on the map there. Hopefully you can see it. And I will be taking on a new role, the role of Creation Stewardship Coordinator with BMS, and also I'll be connecting up to the Piura Baptist Association, and working a bit with the church there as well. And yeah, Piura is a very different kind of place from the pictures I've put there. Some of those are with the pastoral family that I was able to connect up with, and they took me to the beach, which was obviously a delightful novelty from having been in the jungle. So Piura, the city, is about, maybe it's an hour from the beach, and it's a very different environment, very, very dry. It's basically desert as opposed to jungle. But lots of ideas there, lots of need there, as there is in all places. So I will be taking on quite a new role in quite a new place, but very, very glad for the experience that I've had, and for this new opportunity that God is giving me. So I'm going to finish off now just with some of these, with some prayer points. Yeah, some 4 prayer points here to kind of tie everything together. So let me just read through those. And before I do, as I've said, thank you for your prayers. I mean, honestly, I've been partnered with Mount Pleasant for very many years now, and I've really appreciated that you've walked with me through all of this time, and continue to walk through this with me. So thank you for your prayers, and yeah, as I've written, please don't stop. So just four prayer points to finish on. First one is for new ways of reaching the rural pastors in the jungle, that is, using our teaching material on the radio. So yeah, please pray for the team who's still working on that. Please also pray for strength, health, and vision for the Loreto Baptist Association, as they're really still regrouping and regaining their strength and vision. Please also pray for wisdom and communication amongst the BMS local team I'm leaving behind. And especially, I'd like to mention Betsy, who's the administrator of the training centre in Nauta. She's had some fairly serious health issues, so please do pray for her healing. And finally, just could you please continue to pray for me in the new role that I'm taking on when I go back, and this new location that I'll be able to settle in well, find a place to live, and be able to hit the ground running, really. That will all be very lovely. So thank you so much for all your prayers, and yeah, please don't stop. God bless you all.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. It's been great to hear that. If you want to stop sharing your screen now, and so I'm going to invite somebody else in our service today to follow up on those prayer requests and to lead through on some of those prayers. They cover, as you pointed out, some of the things that you've been involved with in the past, which in a sense are going to continue just without you.
Yep.
Because it's not all about you, which is really what you were saying in the Bible passage. Absolutely.
Yeah. Amen.
But and God can do good things through change, although sometimes I'm not sure we believe that really.
No, I agree.
We don't like change, do we? We're change resistant, And when change is forced upon us, which of course it has been, it's only those that are willing to willing to learn, willing to sort of explore and adapt, that see the joys and fruits, really. So and the joys and fruits of creation, stewardship, coordinator.
Yes.
So let me just ask you one question before we wrap up. So you're going to be doing that from Peru.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to be doing that, in a Western country with all the modern technology and all the sort of communication channels? Why are you going back to Peru to do that?
Well, firstly, because the bit of Peru I'm going to is actually very developed. That's one of the paradoxes of many Latin American countries. Between one end and the other, you could be in two very different parts of the world. So that's one reason to go to Piura. And the other reason is that we're just very keen that when we talk about creation and creation care, we can get a very UK fixed way of looking at things, and that's only one way of looking at things. And arguably there are many more people having to deal with it from a very different perspective than people in the UK. So I'm certainly very keen, as well as BMS is keen, that we can keep ourselves open to as many kind of non-UK perspectives. God is saying things to people outside the UK in a big way, just as he is in the UK. And we want to be open to that as well. So part of me being still in Peru is trying to keep ourselves as open as possible to those different perspectives that we can all learn from, essentially.
That's really interesting, isn't it? That there's an attempt to continue to have, or to see things through other people's eyes, and perhaps it's easier to forget what people see when you're not in their situation, but easier to remember what they see when you are in their situation. And obviously you are passionate about Peru and Peruvians and everything, and we pray the Lord's blessing on you when you go back, which is when you will be returning to Peru.
Yep, God willing, the 27th of July, I have my ticket. Yeah.
So providing Ryanair don't cancel the flight. No, you won't be going with Ryanair.
God forbid.
Very thought. Hey, there we go. Thanks so much for your time, Laura. Pray the Lord's blessing on you. Take care.
Thank you. God bless.